close look at the poster of the symposium. The title is Defining the Great Acceleration. And it's a very deliberate choice of the word. And actually, without previous knowledge of what the Max Planck group has been working on, and I sort of guess that you are trying to do redefining the great acceleration. Probably what I'm going to talk today is maybe on the category of refining the Anthropocene and expanding, new. So it's a two different research program. I think that your attempt is a very will lead to fruitful products and making a lot of sense to, I think, scientists and others. And the meaning of causality in interpreting the number of phenomena. But I'm going to do a little bit of a different way. Where is the? Maybe you took it.
Yeah, that's right.
So my talk is a bit of a retrospective and then prospective because I understand that many of you already know what the Center for Anthropocene Studies are doing, but for those who don't, I give a little bit of a background of what guides my study, what guides the Center for Anthropocene Studies. So the three things I'm going to say in terms of the guiding principle. One is a multidisciplinary approach. And our center was established in 2018 with a funding aimed to promote a convergence research center. So our center was created a part of several centers doing a convergence research. But the term convergence is very tricky. It can be interpreted a number of ways. We use it in a sense that different disciplines could have their own independence, but still can communicate with each other for a common goal. And so, we grouped into four from the bottom: sensing, the changing earth, and then governing and inhabiting, which means how to live together, and then imagining the future. So it covers very broadly from natural scientists and also engineers to humanities and social scientists and also artists. So we work together, but as the director, I know how difficult it is. So I try to be flexible as much as I can. Sometimes I encourage people to communicate, but sometimes I let them flow. Floating as it goes. And so freedom and then constraint and it goes together. So anyway, this is the multidisciplinary approach that we took. And as a sort of a guiding idea, here Jan and Julia and Mark Williams wrote a beautiful book, and I thought that it's kind of textbook for the Anthropocene because it covers many aspects of the Anthropocene. And here it clearly says that we need multiple disciplinary ideas, and one approach would not fit because it's a very complicated and complex, networked, connected phenomenon. And I took it very seriously. And then one part, all systems' network complexities require a new form. Social knowledge is equally complex and networked. So there is possibilities of natural sciences being complex, and then social sciences being also complex, and then creating a new form of knowledge system, and which shows the possibility of actually a transdisciplinary if we pursue it further. So multidisciplinary starting point, but can be going into the transparency. This is a translation with Young-Jin Kim and then myself, and then it took more than I thought, and but I believe it sells well, but it's not a bestseller. It's okay. And the second point is planetary thinking. I mean, it's easy to say that we have to do a planetary thinking, but what is planetary thinking? It's very difficult. And one philosopher or SDS scholar, Bruno Latour, said, facing Gaia. Gaia is the Earth, the planet, right? The title of the book is, and then he tries to show how to do that, how to face the planet and think planetary. And then at one point, I found this line really interesting, because I know the geologist is very working, and Anthropocene working group is working to find the marker, and then scientifically. But what he says that what makes Anthropocene an excellent marker, according to quite clearly detector beyond frontier of stratigraphy, is that the name of this geohistorical period may become the most pertinent philosophical, religious, anthropological, and, as we shall soon see, political concept for beginning to turn away from, for good, from the notions of modern and modernity. In other words, he believed that we can move beyond the discourse of modernity with the concept of Anthropocene. And he believes that that could be a marker. Probably the geologist would not accept that, but this is one way of planetary thinking. And then he moves on, and then actually he draws a number of planetary models to think about the next stage of Earth, and then possibility, and so on. And he wrote a book called Down to Earth, which was English translated 2019. And I thought that it's only 100 pages long, so I thought it's manageable. I know Latour is very difficult to understand. I'm a big fan of Latour, and then I read a lot. I took pain, but it's short, and so I took it and then started translating it. It's really good experience. Anyway, what I want to say is that for the Korean translation, he gave the new preface, and this is very illuminating, because he wrote the book before pandemic, but he wrote the new preface after the pandemic, during the pandemic actually. And then he says that living in the ruins of modernism is, of course, exciting. Okay. See, he wants to break away from the modernity. But right now, it is simply terrifying. Right now is the pandemic. People are dying. This is why we need, in the middle of the pandemic, to learn how to land on Earth without crashing. It's a bit, the planetary thinking and metaphorical, but anyway, the publisher liked that phrase, so this is not the down-to-earth translation, but not crashing, how to land on Earth without crashing. That's the title. Anyway. And another planetary thinking is, of course, the historian Dipesh Chakrabarty, very provocative, and the planet, an emergent humanist category. It's new. It's an existential question, what we are facing. So existential question is a humanist, concept, the problem. And also, this is a very difficult to understand 100%. You need some kind of background knowledge. But towards the end, actually, this is a kind of a last paragraph, and he said, as geologist Jan Jelcevic once observed, it is hard as humans to have perspective on the human race. Okay. What indeed are the perspectives that Earth system science offers? If one reads Earth system science as providing an autobiography of humans, when humans have become a question for themselves, what indeed that question motivates this narrative? Such questions mark out how the category planet enters humanistic thought as a matter of human existential question. Still, it requires a lot of interpretations, but what he's saying that is Earth system science is a sort of a new kind of historian, studying the history of the human conditions changing over time. And the third point that influences me a lot is provincializing the Anthropocene idea. And Gabriel Hecht, a historian, says very provocatively, what picture of the Anthropocene emerges when we begin our analytic adventure in Africa instead of in Europe. So it is a call for moving away from Eurocentric perspective and seeing the Anthropocene from the people outside Europe. And she wrote a book on the African situations. And Jürgen also emphasizing local culture and then seeing the evolution of knowledge not just like a linearly moving from European countries to around to the countries outside. Rather, it's a very interactive and then interpreting the dynamics is so important, and then especially in the age of Anthropocene, there is no clear distinction between culture and nature. So what he calls anthropological nature, and then he says that the main concern of the present is no longer one of the universalizing the local, but of the localizing and contextualizing the supposedly universal. And I think that this is a very perceptive idea, and so I was influenced by this. And also, great derangement, Amitav Ghosh, and specifically says that Asia is central in understanding the Anthropocene. This is a very good evidence that how a specific region can be a clue to understanding the Anthropocene. And here, it's Asia is conceptually critical to every aspect of global warming, causes and then implications and so on. And then he says that implications are rarely reckoned with. And this may be because the discourse around the Anthropocene and the climate matters generally remain largely Eurocentric. This is why the case for Asia's centrality to the climate crisis does need to be laid out in some detail. So this is a sort of a guiding principles that, there are so many scholars in the Anthropocene studies. My focus could be, and then what we can do in Korea is to promote some kind of different kind of concerns and then interpretations while acknowledging Anthropocene is a universal scientific concept. So Gauch's thesis is based on three things. One is Asia's role as a victim. The pure number is a huge number, and so there will be a large number of victims. So I'm going to go a little bit faster. And then the role as a protagonist is rapid industrialization of most populous countries like China and India, beginning in the 1980s. So it does not necessarily mean that the Great Acceleration starts 1980s, but it sustains the trend and going up and then pushing ahead. And so this is particularly important. And the difference is this one. It happens through a sudden but very small expansion in the footprint of a much larger number of people. Do you understand the meaning? The impact is big, but the large population is contributing small thing. Right? And this is a very important point to consider. And then also, the third point is the Asia plays a role as a laboratory experiment. So, in other words, if any measures to cope with the Anthropocene do not succeed in Asia, then it's not going to work. It's a test case. So this is a very illuminating observations. So acceleration narrative. I probably can go a little bit faster because you can nicely cover this. And this is the first graphs 2004. This is published in IGBP, International Geosphere Biosphere Program series book, and this is the first time the Anthropocene term was linked with a great acceleration, published in 2007. And interesting that there is stage 1 of the Anthropocene, stage 2, and then industrial era and the great acceleration. And this is now it's a part of history, right? And now the great acceleration has its has the implications that in terms of the number, and then it's global, and then looking at the changes of the planet using number of data, especially satellite data, and then see how the whole planet is changing. And then this is the film, the 3-minute film, Welcome to the Anthropocene, made by the scientist group Planet Under Pressure, and it's premiered in London in March, and then it was shown at the beginning of the UN Conference on Sustainable Development in 2012. And then you can see clearly there is the great acceleration graph, right? And you can, I don't think that the producers and the writers intended that, but it can be interpreted as like a modernity starting in UK, the Industrial Revolution, and then it's spreading like a virus around the world, right? That lighting the continents, and then touching the Asia and Africa and others, and then it's a very the particular typical example of a Eurocentric perspective. And at the end, the narrator says that we have shaped our past we are shaping our present. We can shape our future. You and I, parts of the story. We are first generation to realize this new responsibility. As the population grows to 9 million, we must find the safe operating space for humanity for the sake of future generations. Welcome to the Anthropocene. And it's not really scary, right? Welcome, and it's an opportunity. But the question is, who are we and who are the humanities? It's been criticized a number of times by social scientists. I'm not going to repeat that, but this is the question that we have to address. The question is how. And then the artists doing different kinds of documentaries, instead of sort of satellite data, going to the ground and seeing the real changes brought by the human beings and the underlying capitalism and then burning the ivory. So, and I think Stefan reflect some of the concerns, and this is a change from 2004 to 2015, and nobody really paid attention to the dropping of great floods. And no explanation was offered in the paper. Why? Maybe it's too difficult to collect the flood data. Maybe. And then it's changed into ocean acidification. And then McDonald drop, and then primary energy use inserted. So a little bit of the adjustment. So I'm not surprising. If we have more or change it, the graphs, and then more adjusted and normalized, it will be great. And then there should be explanations about why. And then we don't have to fix to the 12 and 12. We can have more, and so more possibilities. And this is, I think, the big changes in 2015. And actually, when Stefan came to the very first international symposium, he emphasized this, that consider different countries have different contributions to population and the economic activities. And you can see the population, this is a BRIC means Brazil, Russia, and China, India, and then they are most populous, but their contribution to real GDP is not as great as developed countries. And then meaning the different responsibilities. So this is a kind of my to-do list, what to do, how to incorporate the notion of Asia's centrality, and then variety of shapes and then experiences of acceleration. And here is a small attempt, kind of data gathering. I was helped by my collaborators at the center, and the flood damage in Japan. The data shows, I don't think that this is a great acceleration graph, but it's very spotty. So I don't know how we can make it as a nice graph. And then South Korea, late 1990s. But you have to pay attention to the scale, which is has a unit of US dollars. It's like 500,000 and up at 3 million. But if you take a look at the China, it's a 10 million, 7 million. I mean, and so in other words, the scale is very different. And then in terms of taking off a point, Japan, but this is an active coal power unit. Japan 50s, Korea 70s, China 90s. But if we collect them in one graph, Japan and Korea contribution is negligible. It looks just like the Chinese. So Chinese the China entering the picture is a real game changer. So the second, what about the variety of shapes? Slowing down, deceleration, or new pressure. How can you do that? And this is the very evidence that the Anthropocene Working Group present as the evidence for the marker, the Anthropocene marker. And you see clearly the graph taking off around 1952 in different places, and also it is tailoring off, going up and then tailoring off, and then at least for that it's not great acceleration, right? And then how we can consider that? And this is a fly ash, spherical carbonous particle, and then unlike plutonium-239, this one really shows that the geographical differences, and then taking off time is different because industrialization pace are different from one place to another. That's understandable. But again, it take off and then going down. How can we incorporate this idea into great acceleration? One is actually one thing that we have to consider. So this is SCP graph, and then this is Asian peak, and then this is southern hemisphere. It's global north peak. Obviously, the industrialization took place a bit later. So it's different. And so one idea is to have a plutonium activity and then others, concrete, plastic, and others side by side. Now, I don't know, the Max Planck colleagues would be happy with this, or we have to do more. There should be a way of doing this. And population. Of course, population grossly goes up, but you can see in Japan around 1990 going down actually, right? And Korea the same, but a little bit late, 2010 going down. And China the same, 2000 going down. I mean, so how can we explain this? Or how can we incorporate that into the study of a great acceleration is the question. And the third is how to theorize the experiences of acceleration, for example, education, family, and citizenship, and so on, more social science topic. And this is actually my main point, compressed modernity concept. And I have 10 minutes. I can finish it in 10 minutes, but Q&A will be 10 more minutes. All right. Theories of modernity or post-modernity is interestingly coincide with the Great Acceleration period, right? And then because it's a reflection on the modern society. And then what's the problem after World War II? And then this one is the first one, David Harvey, The Condition of Postmodernity. I'm not saying that this is the only work about modernity, critical theory of modernity. There are tons. It's some of the exemplars. And so postmodernism, postcolonialism, amodernism, because Bruno Latour says that we have never been modern, so there is no postmodern, because we have never been. So he says that amodern is the term that we have to use. Interesting, right? And then reflexive modernization, because we are facing global risk. And then Ulrich Berg and Giddens and Resch is there. Now, the Korean sociologist published quite recently the compressed modernity. And I'm very familiar with the compressed growth because Korea experienced compressed growth. But what he has done is to theorize that experience, that phenomena, into sociological terminology. And then this is his definition. Compressed modernity is a civilizational condition in which economic, political, social, and or cultural changes occur in an extremely condensed manner with regard to both time and space, and in which the dynamic coexistence of mutually disparate historical and social elements lead to the construction and the reconstruction of a highly complex and fluid social system. What does that mean? And he builds on David Harvey's concept of time-space compression. And this is a very much Marxist interpretation of changes. Like accumulation of crisis of capitalism leads to the efforts to overcome it, and then it leads to the expansion of control of space and the generalization became the time, which means going out and then building colonies and more trade and so on, and on a global scale, and which leads to annihilation of space through time. You can go and then conquer space and specialization of time. It's interesting ideas. And then Chang's time-space condensation and compression means that it can happen with very Marxist theory formulation, but at the same time it can happen at the national and other levels, even personal levels, involving more diverse historical backgrounds, factors, and imitations. What does that mean? And Harvey's focus was in he used the time-space compression, but Chang called it, this is a condensation. Compression is more in the society level changes, and that's what he wanted to emphasize. So I sort of summarize his compressed modernity idea. So temporal condensation of historical change, spatial condensation of civilized campus, compressed mixing of diverse temporalities, eras, and mixing of diverse spaces, exposure to different civilizations. And it can be manifested at various levels of human existence and experiences, like a personhood, family, secondary organization, and so on. Also, it can be manifested in multi-directionality of the ecological, material, and social cultural risks. In other words, the risks not coming from developed countries to underdeveloped countries. It's all interlinked. So I think it's moved beyond core peripheral kind of a distinction. It's all connected systematically. And so he framed his main argument with this phrase. For example, South Korea as multiplex theater society. You know the multiplex theater. Huge movie theater. Going there, you can choose many movies to see, and there are multiple rooms, or it can be seen in a different time zone. It's like a multiple theater. And his point is that the modernity is plural, not only across different nations. This is what many critical theorists are talking about, but his point is that each national society have that kind of multiple modernity aspects. And Korea, among others, is distinct in terms of the volume of internal multiplicity of modernities, each conditioned and shaped by overpowering international influences, especially in the 20th century. From the Japanese colonial period and the liberation, 1945, and then US occupation and Korean War and development. I mean, this is the experience that is mentioned. And so citizens in compressed modernity should earn its kind of a right to claim with a contribution to transform oriented state and society. In other words, transformation, changes are sort of mandatory, and then it's something that you have to follow all the time. Otherwise, you are lagging behind. That is a kind of a pressure that a lot of people cope with. Then how to overcome that kind of pressure? Family. Here, the very traditional concepts of Confucian relations and then the family relations come in here, and then a key for survival. And then he's not really going back to the traditional Confucian interpretation of developmental society. Rather, he sees the family as a key unit for survival, and so he invented intra-structural feminism. So in the multiplex theater, many claims are being made and competing and that kind of thing. So I visualize like this. This is a stratigraphic. It's from the Devonian controversy, and there are many rock types. Okay, and they may be linked underneath, right? But there are many rock types, and then in modernities there are many different kinds of modernities, and the colonial modernities, modernity, post-colonial, neo-traditionalist modernity, and so on. And many people are probably familiar with the state capitalist modernity and neoliberal kind of a version of modernity. And the point is, these modernities are competing and then happening at the same time. So, what you can see is dizzy and interesting, fun. That's why a lot of people, especially young people, want to come here. And so I'm gonna finish in 2 minutes. This is two great movies directed by Bong Joon-ho, and Snowpiercer and Parasite. Snowpiercer's setting is very interesting. The planet is being heated up, and then so the global warming is so serious, so that people decided to do geoengineering. So scatter the particles atmosphere, and then what comes is the ice age, and the survived people, only the survived human people got into the train, and then train moves around the globe all the time. You cannot get out because it's ice age, and then all kinds of food, energy, and are provided there. But in the train, the car, each part has its own sort of a class. So very low class, and so in other words, it's like a class conflicts in a very confined space, while the train is moving in a very accelerated way. It's just like a conquering of a space in a certain time. I don't know the Bong Joon-ho director intended for that, but I interpreted it this way. It's interesting. The Parasite. I don't need to give you a sort of a synopsis of this great movie, but the one thing is there is always call for the looking at upward move and then downward move. It's a very much a vertical politics going on. And whether it's within one house or the different town, going up and going down is a main theme. And then, interestingly, and so actually it was pictured in this kind of area. And low class people going up and then just happen to kill the rich people. And again, the family is the key. As a family, as a team to survive. So I don't know whether you agree with me or not. But anyway, the compressed modernity is reflected here. The final point is militarism or global war context. And then the Korea's experience of Cold War is very, very different from others. And then we began to experience it even before the Korean War. Because the south part of Korea was occupied by US and the north, the Soviet Union, right after 1945, right? And in 1948, when the UN decided to go for the general election only within the southern part, and there were some demonstrations and strikes, and then especially partially seriously in the Jeju Island. So there was a serious crackdown of what is called the communist sympathizer, and there were so much. That happened in 1948, 49, and then leading to 1950. That's what is called the 4-3 incident. Now, what's happening is a commemoration of a 4-3 incident is happening in two ways, right and then left. And on the left, so sort of a patriot ancestors are remembered, and then patriotic soldiers, and then those killed by communists. But others also, that particular village, about 300 victims, and killed by anti-communist political terror. And the point is interesting. The dark clouds of history came to us, whose origin we still do not know after all these years. Looking back, we see that we all are victims. Looking back, we see that we all should forgive each other. So we are struggling. That didn't go away easy. And so, and Han Gang, who got the Nobel Prize last year, wrote about it, 4-3 incident, and also some others. And this is another sort of a Korean culture, why it covers so many difficult moments, and then what is modernity? It's a question, and it's not singularly answered. So my point is, this is my last point, is like this. Accelerations, you can see, but the people feel compression in society. My question is that the two sides of the one coin, how it's identical or different or linked? We have to argue and then discuss. But this is a point that I want to make. It's a lingering effect. Lingering effects marked on Earth and in mind. I mean, great acceleration graphs. Some more took off in around 1950, 52. May slow down, tapering off. That's fine. It lingers. It's marked on Earth. The same was like some of the historical experiences in a very compressed society. in mind. And then we still have to cope with that. And then I hope when we talk about the great acceleration graphs, we find a way to sort of extract some of the stories out of it, and then see things from a very different perspective. And then this is one example of how Asia experience could be very useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Buhm, for a fascinating and I would even say moving and very rich talk. Gives me lots of soup. But I have all along one question in mind, and you came to it towards the end. I'm also very impressed by this concept of compressed modernity. And the question that I had in mind is, you know, it is very plausible when you apply it to one nation like Korea. And there are other nations, I mean, China, even Japan, much earlier, had similar experiences. But we also know that there were conflicts, that there were different trajectories which led to new forms of imperialism, new forms of colonialism. So my question is very simple. Does the concept of compressed modernity, which I found very convincing on many levels, does it help us to cope with these conflicts and with the difference in time also of these trajectories? So, or is it just focused on one nation and one experience?
Well, that's a wonderful question. And then Chang Kyung-seop, the sociologist who coined the compressed modernity and then theorized it in a very universal way. And then he took the example of Korea, but he didn't say this is a uniquely Korean story, rather because the whole world is the condensation of space and time. It's all linked, but it's maybe manifested differently, but the people are feeling the effects of one compressed society to another. It's a bit risky. My own interpretation of, for example, U.S. president's push for tariff and economic, using tariff as a weapon, is a desperate measures to see the effects of globalizations. I mean, what the Korean society and then the Japan and the German developing so fast is directly affecting the United States, the biggest economy. And then it's linked. And then somehow the people there, except the high income people, ordinary people feel the same way of compressed. You have to do more, and then there is a rising competition for university entrance, the prestige universities, and then more and more people are coming. That's the one side. So I think there is a possibility of applying this concept to other countries. Of course, historical experiences are different. So emphasizing the historical factors are important in incorporating those things.
Thank you for a very wonderful talk. I was very impressed. And the question that I like to make is a relation to the spatialization of time. I realized the great acceleration discussion so far has been so much focused on the temporality, and also the graphs shows the in a horizontal line, the x-axis is always about the time. But I was imagining what if we can switch that x-axis into some of the spatial aspect, and I wonder if there is any project or imagination on your side to switch that graphs into imagination of different spatial scales.
Wow, that's a really good question, and I think probably Jürgen and you can do like a Fourier transformation of a great acceleration graph, and then see how changing time and space can. Actually, I want to do that. Like, what if we can see a great acceleration graph from like a space point of view, different regions, and then different kind of development stages, and then what kind of stories it can tell. This is a thought experiment, but it's worth pursuing. I don't know whether you can do it as your postdoctoral project, but this is something that we have to do. I think it is a really good one.
Thanks for your wonderful talk. So I have one question about the concept of compression. So do you have any idea to is compression into a number to like a great acceleration graph? Do you have any idea or plan to make a compression graph?
Well, you can do it with like Korean cases of suicide or fertility rate dropping, or some other examples. You can translate that into numbers. Like among the OECD countries, Korea is performing pretty well in many like productive sides, but it's a quite contrast that other indexes. The Korean is really hitting the bottom, and then that contrast is, I think, the sign of compression. But again, you can do it more systematically, but it's just idea that how to quantify the level of compression, and then whether we can plot it against many other countries or different kinds of modalities. That's a good topic.
Thank you also from my side for this talk. One little point that I find a bit problematic is this question of the family being like a core unit in the tackling Anthropocene challenges. And the reason why I think it's a bit problematic, you showed yourself, you have the declining reproduction rates, and I think you also showed even then the age pyramids. And that doesn't go away, right? If you have declining reproduction rates, it'll always stay like this. There will be less younger people, that even have less children, meaning also that in this pyramid, more people don't have kids. So the younger generation is really there not only for their immediate family. So either you have then a new refined notion of family that doesn't hinge on biological ties, but we certainly have to take into account that this is changing.
Well, the sort of infrastructure familiarism is that the term that we created. The way that I understand it is sort of a concentration of resources, family resources, and the parents doing all kinds of sacrifices to support the children, going to the better schools, and then giving more opportunities. And that's happening, and it's almost like a norm. Because everybody's doing it. If you are moving, so that's like a parent's perspective. But what you're asking, I know it's more like the younger generation perspective. That's, I don't really know.
No, but even from the parents' perspective, we will have more and more older people that are just not parents. So what do they do with that potential? How do we find ways that what they did before for their children, they can tap into it?
So that's why kind of a Confucian relations comes in like a tradition. So it's like a modernity does not mean that get rid of all the traditions. So traditional relations coming in to play. But in the past, the tradition is like the children look up to their parents, and then doing their yard work to support the family, and then so on. But at the same time, the parents are taking care of the children. But these days, it's a bit of a change, but the relations are there. But it's amazing how the family plays like a team these days.
Okay, I think we have to end the session here. Thank you, Professor Park, for your we'll come back we'll start our next session at 1 p.m.
So lunch is out. Enjoy. There you are.